Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're standing next to your dream car, the engine humming with power. You've built everything you ever wanted: success, recognition, maybe even wealth. But then you turn to the passenger seat and it's empty. No one to share the ride, no one to laugh with when you hit a pothole, no one to celebrate the journey. This isn't just a metaphor. It's the reality for millions. We chase success, we build careers, we grind day and night. But somewhere along the way, we lose something far more valuable. We lose connection. And let me tell you something powerful. Loneliness isn't just a feeling. It's a warning light. Just like an engine check in your car, it's telling you something is wrong. The question is, will you ignore it, or will you pull over and fix it? Stay with me, because this conversation might just be the turn you need to take. Success is often painted as the ultimate goal, the destination we all strive for. We are told that if we work hard enough, if we push through every obstacle, if we stay focused and disciplined, we will arrive at a place where everything feels complete. But what happens when we get there and realize something is missing? What happens when we achieve everything we set out to accomplish, only to find ourselves feeling empty? There's a common belief that success brings happiness. That once we have the title, the wealth, the recognition, we will finally feel fulfilled. And so we pour everything into our work, sacrificing time, relationships, and even our well-being, thinking it will all be worth it in the end. But here's the truth. Success without connection is meaningless. Imagine a man who has built an empire. He has the house, the car, the lifestyle that so many dream of. But when he looks around, there is no one to celebrate with. No one to sit at the dinner table and talk about the day. No one to call when things get tough. The applause of the crowd fades, and what remains is silence. A deafening, lonely silence. It's easy to get caught up in the illusion that being self-sufficient is a sign of strength, that needing people is a weakness, that if we just keep moving forward, we'll eventually stop feeling alone. But that's not how human beings are wired. We are social creatures. We thrive in connection, in community, in relationships. And yet, so many of us chase individual success at the cost of the very thing that gives life meaning. There is nothing wrong with ambition. There is nothing wrong with working hard, with pushing yourself to achieve great things. But if that pursuit comes at the expense of meaningful relationships, then what have we really gained? If we build a life that looks impressive on the outside but feels hollow on the inside, then what was the point? The greatest achievements in the world feel empty when there's no one to share them with. The celebrations feel forced, the milestones feel insignificant, because at the end of the day, success is not about what we accumulate, it's about who we experience life with. Loneliness is not just a passing emotion. It is not simply a phase that comes and goes. It is a weight, a slow and steady erosion of the human spirit. When a person is isolated for too long, it changes them. It alters the way they see the world, the way they interact with others, and even the way they see themselves. Studies have shown that loneliness is as damaging to physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It increases stress levels, weakens the immune system, and raises the risk of heart disease and depression. But beyond the science, there is something even more alarming. Loneliness does not just affect the body, it affects the mind. It makes people believe they are unworthy of connection, that they are somehow different, somehow broken. And this is where the real danger lies, because loneliness does not announce itself with flashing lights or loud alarms. It creeps in quietly. It starts as a feeling of disconnection, a small moment of being overlooked. Maybe it begins with unanswered messages, canceled plans, or a growing sense that no one really notices whether you are there or not. Over time, this feeling grows. It becomes a belief, and then it becomes a reality. A man with no friends does not just wake up one day and decide to be alone. It happens gradually. At first, he convinces himself that he does not need anyone, that he is better off on his own. He buries himself in work, in distractions, in anything that keeps him from facing the truth. But the truth does not go away. It lingers in the silence of an empty home, in the absence of a familiar voice, in the realization that days and weeks can pass without a meaningful conversation. What makes this even more dangerous is that loneliness feeds itself. The longer a person stays isolated, the harder it becomes to reach out. They start to believe that no one wants to hear from them, that friendships are things that happen to other people, not to them. And so they retreat further. They stop trying. They stop hoping. They accept a reality that was never meant to be theirs. Human beings are not designed for isolation. The mind and body suffer when they are deprived of connection. The longer loneliness persists, the deeper the wounds become. And the most painful part is that the person suffering often does not know how to ask for help. Or worse, they believe no one would care if they did. Human connection is not just a luxury, it is a fundamental need wired into us from the very beginning. From the moment we are born, we seek out warmth, comfort, and the presence of others. A newborn does not survive without human touch, and as we grow, that need for connection does not disappear. It evolves. It becomes the foundation for trust, belonging, and emotional well-being. Science has proven that strong relationships lead to longer, healthier, and happier lives. Studies show that people who maintain close friendships and social bonds have lower levels of stress, stronger immune systems, and even a reduced risk of chronic illnesses. Connection is not just about emotional fulfillment. It directly impacts our physical health. The brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, when we experience meaningful relationships, reinforcing trust and reducing fear. Yet despite knowing this, many people find themselves drifting into isolation. In a world more digitally connected than ever, true human connection is often neglected. Social media gives the illusion of closeness, but a like or a comment does not replace a deep conversation. A follower count does not equate to real friendship. We have more ways to communicate, yet fewer moments of genuine connection. The power of human connection lies in its ability to give life meaning. When we share experiences with others, they become richer. A beautiful sunset is stunning on its own, but it becomes unforgettable when shared with someone we care about. Laughter is joyful, but it feels deeper when echoed by another person. Even our struggles become more bearable when we have someone to lean on. But connection does not happen by accident. It requires effort, vulnerability, and the willingness to invest in relationships. Many people wait for friendships to happen to them, as if they are passive observers in their own social lives. The reality is, strong relationships are built through consistent action, through showing up, listening, and being present. Even small interactions hold great power. A kind word, a check-in message, or a simple gesture can create a ripple effect, reminding someone that they are seen and valued. The presence of even one strong connection can change the trajectory of a person's life. It can be the difference between hope and despair, between resilience and defeat. It is not about how many friends a person has, but about the depth of those connections and the impact they create. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. Many see it as a weakness, something to be avoided or hidden. From an early age, people are taught to be strong, to be independent, to handle things on their own. Society rewards those who appear self-sufficient, those who seem to have it all together. But the truth is, the strongest relationships are built on the very thing people are afraid to show: vulnerability. Every meaningful friendship, every deep bond starts with a moment of honesty. It starts when one person decides to put down their guard and say, "This is who I really am." Yet so many people resist this. They fear judgment. They fear rejection. They believe that if they reveal their struggles, their insecurities, or their pain, others will turn away. But in reality, vulnerability does the exact opposite. It pulls people closer. It creates trust. It allows others to see that they are not alone in their own struggles. Think about the conversations that leave a lasting impact. They are not the ones filled with small talk or polite exchanges. They are the ones where someone shares something real, a fear, a hope, a failure. It is in those moments that real connection happens, because authenticity is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are willing to be real, to be imperfect, to be human. The problem is, many have been hurt before. They have opened up in the past and been met with indifference or even betrayal. So, they build walls. They tell themselves that it is safer not to share, not to let anyone in. But what starts as self-protection quickly turns into isolation. A person who hides too much of themselves eventually becomes invisible, even in a crowded room. Vulnerability is not about exposing every thought or feeling to everyone. It is about knowing when and with whom to be open. It is about creating space for real conversations where people feel safe to be themselves without fear of being judged. When someone has the courage to be vulnerable, they give others permission to do the same. The most powerful relationships are not built on perfection, they are built on honesty. People do not connect over flawless success stories, they connect over shared struggles, over the courage it takes to say, I don't have all the answers, or I need help. It is in those moments that true friendships are formed, not through an image of strength, but through the reality of being human. A man with no friends is not always someone who chose isolation. Sometimes he is someone who has been left behind, someone who was once surrounded by people, but found himself alone without realizing when it happened. Relationships, like anything valuable, require maintenance, and without effort, they slowly wither away. It is not that he did not care, it is that he assumed people would always be there. He thought friendships were solid, unbreakable, that the connections he built in the past would carry on without needing to be nurtured. Life moves fast and responsibilities grow heavier. Careers demand time, family obligations take priority, personal ambitions consume energy. Days turn into months and months into years, and somewhere along the way, friendships fade into the background. A text goes unanswered, a plan gets postponed, a phone call never happens. At first it seems like a small thing, an exception rather than a pattern. But over time the distance grows. The longer it goes unaddressed, the harder it becomes to bridge the gap. People rarely notice the exact moment they become isolated. It does not happen overnight. It is gradual, subtle. It begins with less engagement, with fewer invitations, with the belief that reaching out feels unnecessary. The mind starts making excuses. They're probably busy. I don't want to bother them. They haven't reached out either, so maybe they don't care. These small thoughts, repeated often enough, create a barrier that is difficult to break. The truth is, most people do not intentionally drift apart. It is not personal. Everyone is caught up in their own world, dealing with their own struggles. But friendships are not self-sustaining. They require effort, just like any relationship, and effort does not always mean grand gestures. It can be something as simple as checking in, sending a message, or making time for a short conversation. These small acts remind people that they matter, that they are seen, that they are valued. Many people believe that if a friendship fades, it is too late to revive it. But that is not true. A simple message, a call, or an invitation can reignite a connection that seemed lost. It is never about how long it has been. It is about whether there is still a willingness to reconnect. Friendships are not about constant presence, but about consistent effort. It is not about how often you talk, but about showing up when it truly matters. Loneliness is not just about being alone. It is about feeling unseen, unheard, and disconnected from the world. A man with no friends may not even realize the depth of his isolation until he reaches a moment of need, when he has something to celebrate but no one to share it with, when he faces a hardship but has no one to lean on. It is in those moments that the weight of solitude becomes undeniable. He might convince himself that he is fine, that he is used to it, but deep down, the absence of connection leaves an emptiness that cannot be ignored. The modern world has made isolation easier than ever. With technology, a person can go through an entire day without speaking to another human face to face. Work can be done remotely. Food can be ordered without conversation. Entertainment is available at the push of a button. It is possible to exist without engaging, without truly connecting, and many people mistake this existence for independence. But independence does not mean emotional detachment. No matter how self-sufficient a person is, human connection remains an essential part of fulfillment and well-being. Many who find themselves alone believe that the solution is simply meeting more people. But connection is not about quantity, it is about depth. A man can be surrounded by a crowd and still feel completely alone. True friendship is built on trust, shared experiences, and the willingness to be present for one another. It is not something that happens instantly. It grows over time, nurtured by consistency and effort. The challenge is that reaching out can feel uncomfortable. It requires vulnerability. It means taking the first step without knowing how it will be received. For someone who has been alone for a long time, the fear of rejection can be paralyzing. What if they do not respond? What if they are not interested? What if it is too late? These thoughts create hesitation, and hesitation keeps people stuck in isolation. But the truth is, most people are waiting for someone else to make the first move. Many long for connection, but assume that others are too busy, too uninterested, or simply not thinking about them. One message, one invitation, one moment of effort can be the beginning of something meaningful. The willingness to take that step, to put in the effort, even when it feels uncomfortable, is what makes the difference between a life of loneliness and a life of connection.